Got ourselves a nice little BRZ in today, and the issue it's having is these two codes keep kind of setting. And a little bit of history about this car: it actually slung a rod bearing or something, had bottom end completely replaced, brand new short block from Subaru. You can probably see some of the shiny block down there. And ever since they've put it back in, it's been setting these two codes. The shop that put this in actually pulled the motor back apart, pulled the cover off. I went and verified the chain timing marks and everything for them. Like, they were pretty positive it was right, so they wanted just a second opinion on it. So I went and looked at it, and I said, yep, timing marks are dead on, and you can clear these codes, and after you drive it a few times, they are right back. So let's see if we figure out what's wrong with this motor. We're going to be hooking up the picoscope down there and getting some cam waveforms, probably even some cam crank waveforms, and see if we can figure out what it's fussing about. Before we get into this thing too much, I want to give a huge shout out to PJ over at Voltage Drop Diagnostics and Chad over at the Practical Mechanic. Those two guys, Chad's a super smart Subaru guy, PJ super smart Toyota guy, and since this thing is a little confused, Toyota, Subaru, both of those guys gave me some great information to help me figure out how to navigate this car, basically. So thanks to both of those guys, and check out their channel if you haven't. So I really don't know a whole lot about Subaru. This is probably like the third car Subaru I've ever diagnosed, which is crazy because I actually own a Subaru Outback, but besides mine and maybe one or two others, I've never diagnosed any of these things really, so they're just not common here. The data on them is a little confusing to me, but I think I'm starting to figure it out. So on the scan tool here, I've got what they're calling VVT angle 1 and 2 pulled up, and you can see there's an aim percentage for 1 and 2. So we've got 60% on 1, 56 on 2, and currently the duty cycle is 0 and 0. So I'm thinking that 60 and 56 is kind of like the learned value, that it's like, hey, we got to hit this number before the cams start to move, maybe. In my head, that's kind of what that looks like. And as you can see right now, the change angle is 0, and then the top change angle, that is the actual. So we've got desired on the bottom and the actual on the top. So let's give this a rev and see what happens, see if we can get these cams to move. So RPM, let's just, so nothing right there. Nothing. I don't know. Maybe it's gotten hot enough or something where it doesn't want to move them. Let's put it in gear. See if putting it in gear, getting it under like a torque load, maybe changes something. So got the door shut. Let's, nothing. So I'm not real sure, but I believe this is supposed to be the intake. Maybe I need to take it down the road and see if this is working, because Like, unless it sets a code and then turns everything off, because those, when I first scanned it just tonight, it was showing as history. So yeah, camshaft B is current right now. So maybe that just disables all timing. I'm just going to go ahead and clear it. We know what the codes are. Let's clear this. I know there's some important freeze frame data, but I'm not too worried about it. I know how to get this to duplicate. Like I've cleared this code already, and it's been drove a few times, and it come right back. So let's go. No, let's read the fault code. Let's make sure it's cleared. Yep, it did. So let's read the data stream again. Get my data PIDs picked. If you see here, we got some that say EX in front of them. I'm sure those are the exhaust, and the code is talking about the exhaust. But before I even look at the exhaust, I want to make sure with the intakes I know what I'm looking at, because it's not fussing about the intakes at all. Let's flip this back over to graph. Okay, so right now I think it's going to work because we've got VVT duty cycle right now. So let's give it a rev. So yeah, our target on the bottom, that's kind of our desired. The top is the actual angle. So yeah, we can see now, like, that's how the data PID should look. That's how they should react. Now, as you can see, they kind of follow it pretty well. All right, good deal. So now we can look at our exhaust, and hopefully it doesn't set the code again. All right, so now our actual angle is the top left, and the commanded is bottom right. So let's give it a little rev. And you can see our exhaust 1, the angle didn't really change, and we just set a code, I think. Maybe no, it come back. So you can see our desired is about 31 degrees, and bank 2, angle 2 is there, but angle 1 is not moved. It didn't move at all. I mean, it's moved a tiny bit, but that camshaft's not moving. So that's what we're after. I may not even need the picoscope. Since I've figured this data out, I may not even need the picoscope anymore. So this is good. All right, I had to do a little research because I don't know these engines all that well. But bank 1 is this side, and bank 2 is this side. So our issue that is complaining about is bank 2 exhaust, which would be this one right here, this solenoid, this cam, whatever, something on this side right here. So I really think the easiest thing to do is these little solenoid things here. I think they call them a magnet or something. There's like a little valve in there. I think the easiest thing to do is just swap this one and that one, just flip them, and see if our problem moves to the intake. Seems like a pretty logical thing to do. I could also maybe even back probe that, watch it on the scope, make sure we're actually getting command and everything there, which I think we are, because I'm pretty sure if I unplug it, we'll set a circuit code. So let's actually do that real fast. Let's take this intake one. We'll unplug it, and we'll crank this thing up and see if we set a circuit code for the intake. if it sets a code, I'm pretty sure the exhaust would too. So cranked up. Let's see. Read fault code. So nothing just yet. So maybe it won't set a code. Let's get all the way out of here and then come back in. So I had the key off for a little bit, so it might not talk back correctly. No code. That is pretty strange. Okay, so now I do need to back probe that connector and make sure it's plugged up, and make sure it's actually got connection, getting signal and stuff. Alright, so I've got just the diagram pulled up here, and then you can see our camshaft timing oil control valve, OE1. Okay, that wire is the wire we need to check, because this other side, you can see how it's tied in with all this other stuff, and it's tied in, it says go to N, so the next page, N, you can see how all this is all tied together. It's safe to say that's going to be a constant 12 volt or a ignition battery feed. So this says go to J. So let's find J right here. Where is it going? To G. G. So not real sure. Unless I've missed something somewhere. Oh, battery positive right there. Okay, so J, that little tap there over to here, battery positive. So yep, we've got positive on one side of this thing, and we will be ground side switched on the other. We're actually just going to use the little U-scope here. I've got the ignition on, so I should have power on one of these wires down here. Let me see if I can set you somewhere where you can see, and I can do what I need to do. So I'm just going to touch the front of the terminal here, and yep, this one is my power. So I'm tapped into the red one, and you can see we've got power on the screen. If I pull my pin out, 0. So I need back probed into that that brown wire right there. So let me get back probed into that. Okay. And of course this is going to show nothing until I plug that up. If I plug that up and we get 12 volts here, it means the solenoid has continuity. So let me get this plugged up. And yep, see there? If I reach down here and unplug this, it's hard to do in my left hand. Let me move you over here. See, it went down to 0. Plug you back up. So the circuit is complete in there. It might be high resistance, but let's crank it up. Let's see what this is. And for reference, I'm just actually just grounded here to a bolt on the engine. The U-scope's awesome, but the leads are a little short, so sometimes you just gotta make do, and we're not being real high tech here. We just need to see if we're getting command signal here. So let me get everything out of the way where I can crank this thing. Make sure my leads are not in the way of anything. Nope. Everything looks good. And cranking. So from our live data, we should see about 50% duty cycle. And we do. Let's change some settings here. Let's go up on the voltage just a little bit. Let's go down on this a little bit. See how we've got this little bit of spike there? I'm pretty sure that means there is current flowing. Even down here where we're turned off at. So you get this little spike here, little spike there. I believe that solenoid is drawing current. So it definitely looks, that looks almost like 60% duty cycle. To know duty cycle, you'd basically be looking at a turn off to turn off, and then just kind of gauge how long your turn on time was versus your turn off time. So to me, that's almost about 60%, which is probably about what we've seen in the live data. So now I want to move the solenoids, swap the intake and the exhaust one, and see if our problem moves to that intake side. All right, I got them solenoids out, magnets, whatever you want to call them. This is the exhaust one, this one's the intake one. And the middle here is a little pintle. So the way I usually just check these is I hold them up, make sure the pintle falls down, and then flip it over, make sure the pintle pops out. It should be real free moving like that. So this is my intake one, and here's my exhaust one. And as you can see, both of these move perfectly fine. So next thing I like to do, let me set this somewhere. Next thing I like to do is just kind of get down in here and feel of the valve. Well, that's going to be too bright. That's too bright. Oh wow, it's too bright. Flashlight is too bright. Let's see if I can get you down in here to see a little bit. Not really. Alright, you see this little button here? That gets pressed in by that pintle. So that's this right here is the oil control valve basically. So that gets pushed in and allows oil to flow in and out of the phaser here. I know that's probably not going to be a great picture, but this one I can push it and it feels fine. Got good spring in it, doesn't bind, doesn't stick. Let's see if we can get down here to this one. There's our problem. Well, okay. I think that one is locked up. Well, it moves, but it was definitely stuck. Ow, it's so hot in here. I'm not sure if you guys will even be able to see. It's moving now. It was awful stuck, but it's moving now. I think I may have fixed it. I pushed on it and it was stuck, and then it kind of broke free, and now it's got some spring in it. I'm still gonna swap my solenoids there, but I bet now it's actually gonna pick up and read correctly, most likely. Alright, so I've only got bank 1 pulled up now, and you can see our desired change for both cams is 0. And let's give it some rev and see what happens. Yep, they both moved. Yeah, they both moved. So that phaser that was not moving because that oil control valve was stuck. Why was it stuck? Could have debris in it. I'm not real sure. But you can see our target angle is 23 degrees, 22 degrees, and that's where we're at. So, and our intake is perfect at 9 degrees. So there we go. That's no parts required for right now. I think we're gonna give it back to them. Tell them to, you know, drive it several times. I would drive it a little bit, but yeah, the gas is on E. I don't drive them when they're on E. You got to bring them to me with a quarter tank for me to drive them. I don't have time to be stuck on the side of the road without gas. So I'll give it back to them. They can put gas in it, drive it, do whatever. But if it happens again, I'm going to recommend that they have to change probably that phaser in that oil control valve. I'm sure there's separate parts, but I feel like if there's debris that got into that valve, it's now in that phaser, possibly. So I feel like when you got to tear one back apart that far, you better just go ahead, you know, replace both of them. Keep yourself safe. So that was actually a lot easier than I thought. So leave some comments down there. What do you guys think? Do you think me pressing it, getting it unlocked, is going to last? Let me know down there. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and catch me on the next one.